Hey folks, sorry about yesterday. Today is July 21st. It's Tuesday, and I haven't seen any indication that Larry is going on with Jason. I called him this morning, and there was no answer. I did it a couple times to ask if he was going to do the show with us today, and then he called me back a couple times when I had the phone on the charger and I was in a different room and didn't hear it. And so I've tried calling him back about 3 more times this afternoon with no answer. So I don't know what's going on. I think there is probably a lot of stress going on at his house. And I've got an awful lot of stress going on in my life right now. Dad's probably not going to be here very much longer. And speaking of my dad, I want you to know, I've told you a little bit about him before, and I'm just, because I don't know how much longer he will be with us, I would like to just say a little bit of a tribute to him today. None of my family will hear this, but he, of course, had been raised under the ministry of the church where John Alexander Dowie, with the gift of healing, the church he had started in north of Chicago. And my grandmother, of course, had been healed through Dr. Dowie's prayers. And he was one of the people with the gift of healing right there in 1900, before the Azusa Street revival and all the other incredible works of miracles that had happened through various ones over the last century. And Dad was led to the Lord in the Navy, and he was in Japan right after the bomb had dropped, and it was a life-changing experience in how it tugged on his heart. And he went to college on the GI Bill, went to seminary, became a pastor, and then shortly thereafter we went to Jamaica. They were missionaries, and he did a lot of church planting in the beginning. He was a circuit riding preacher with 48 different churches. And my dad was not one of these pastors that says what makes people feel good. He told the truth. He talked about witchcraft. He did a whole series on the occult. I learned so much about that back then. Of course, Jamaica had access to, there was a lot of voodoo, a lot of, in the interior, people were very afraid of the demonic spirits. And so, I learned a lot about that as a child. And so, Josephine, I do not know how Larry is. I talked to him a couple times just briefly. He was trying to ask me to bring something to him, and it just didn't work out. And anyhow, I have no idea how he's doing. So I don't know. I mean, I'm got a big question, but right now I'm dealing with wondering, what's going to happen with my dad and how long he will still be here. But, when I had mentioned, my heritage from my family, since he's nearing the end, I just wanted to say how grateful I am for the blessing I have received in having had a father like him. He's an extremely gentle man and a very caring person, very generous person. Did so much. He ministered. He taught at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, which is associated with Trinity University north of Chicago. Trinity and Dallas tend to be the two top seminaries in the country for the evangelical training preachers. And he taught at Trinity, and then he taught at a couple different seminaries in India, and was back and forth to India several times. My son got to go with him as his caretaker on his last trip before dementia started to set in. So anyhow, I just wanted to make a public tribute to my dad. To have lived under my dad's ministry my whole life. Well, my whole growing up and into a little bit of my adult life. And then to have worked with Larry for the last 4 years and seen the incredible tenacity and commitment to truth and to doing what's right, in different capacities. Larry in the political realm, and my dad in the biblical realm, or the preaching area. It's just I feel so blessed to have been able to have what little contact I had with both of them. So my dad's kind of shy, which you wouldn't know with the strong preacher he is or was. He hasn't been in the pulpit in quite some years. But anyhow, I'm still reading through Jeremiah. I have a lot. I worked really hard last weekend in anticipation that, I didn't know how much time I would be able to give to preparing lessons for you. Get woke, you're going to have to listen to the beginning. I don't know. I have no idea what's happening with Larry. I really don't know. So, a lot of stress over concern with that. And then, of course, a lot of stress over concern with what's happening with my dad and how the family's coping and so on, and what I need to do. Am I okay? Today, I am not okay. And so I need what I'm sharing as much as I need to share it. I love learning. I love learning, and I love sharing what I have learned. And so that is what I'm going to do. And what I am talking about today is, for me, as much as it is to be shared with you. And I get to, today, as I share with you, I get to go over it a second time besides what I did in absorbing this information last weekend. So I'm going to start in Jeremiah 32. I'm going to start at verse 17, and we read 17 to 20. So Jeremiah just bought some land that God had told him to buy. So he is now praying to the Lord, and he says, sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens. And I love this verse because I just want to sing it because of the song I learned, in church with these words. Anyhow, I won't sing them to you, but I will read them. Sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and your outstretched arm. Nothing is too difficult or nothing is too hard for you. You show love to thousands. And remember, God said in Deuteronomy that he blesses to 1,000 generations those that love him. His punishment for sin goes to 3 and 4 generations. Your grandkids and great grandkids. They're just comes into your DNA. And then no. But he blesses to 1,000 generations. So it just makes me curious about what went before me. I know I have a godly heritage, and I wonder how far back it goes. And what, there's no way of knowing. I'm curious about what my ancestors did that would have reaped the blessing that I get to be the benefit of. Man, you guys, with what I've been experiencing today, you would not believe how I just needed to hear what just came out of my mouth. Wow. All right, verse 18, you show love to thousands, but bring the punishment for the father's sins into the laps of the children after them. O great and powerful God, whose name is the Lord Almighty. Great are your purposes and mighty are your deeds. Your eyes are open to all the ways of men. You reward everyone according to his conduct and as his deeds deserve. You performed miraculous signs and wonders in Egypt and have continued them to this day. Folks, it's important to read Genesis and Exodus and know what God did for his people back then. We don't know. We haven't been told how many people he called before Abraham agreed. And of course, he didn't call Sarah. She had to go along as his wife. And, it's just, anyhow, we need to be reminded every day of the fact that God is mighty, because when things are tough, we forget. It's amazing how quickly we forget. I know I do. Do you? Forget so quickly. Each new day has enough of its own troubles, as it says in Matthew 6:34. And so, we quickly forget what went before, and we need to be reminded. You did miraculous signs and wonders in Egypt and have continued them to this day, both in Israel and among all mankind, and have gained your renown that is still yours. So I think it's incredible that here in Jeremiah, when we're talking about God's people in Judah and Israel, that Jeremiah is acknowledging that God has done miraculous signs and wonders for all mankind, not just for just his people, the Jews. And of course, now Christians are also his people, special people with special privileges with God, because we love and trust him. So, verse 19, being reminded of mighty deeds. So we have a member of our group who has come very close. She was working on filing bankruptcy. She has been dealing with that. And she had some land available that she is selling. She is getting full price offers. She has multiple offers as far as I know. Her husband has disabilities from from military, and had been denied disability, and that has come through. So that money provided replacing their AC unit, which has been important to do in the over 100-degree weather they've been experiencing. She found good people to replace the roof from hail damage. And, hearing stories like that God is interested in the details of our life. And even somebody else that I had talked to, that I mentioned a month or two ago, that we were on the phone, and he was at the end of his rope on how to pay bills, needed a job. He'd lost his job. And we were praying. We were actually praying. We were in the middle of prayer over his situation and thanking God. This is the other piece, guys. We were thanking God that God was in charge and God was going to provide. And in the middle of my sentence, he got a phone call and had to hang up. And it was a job offer from another state halfway across the country. The person had never met him, but I don't even know how he got the phone number or knew about him, offered him a job on the spot. He has moved there. He loves the job. It's a Christian family. He's doing things that he has a little bit of experience with, but he's a willing learner. And just to know that God is still doing those things. You guys, you have no idea how much God knew that I couldn't give this devotional to you several days ago. It had to wait for today because I need to hear this so much. I just love verse 19. It says he rewards deeds as they are deserved. God sees. He will reward us for what we have done. He remembers we are dust. And so when we fail, when we make mistakes, when we sin, the issue is repentance. Think about Hezekiah. It says he was the most godly king that had ever ruled over Israel. Judah, actually, the southern kingdom. And his son Manasseh was in contrast, Manasseh was born during those extra 15 years that God extended Hezekiah's life. And Manasseh was the most wicked king that they ever had. And because of that wickedness, which is the same kind of stuff we see today with the abortion, with the Satan worship that we are seeing among our leaders, God declared judgment, and it was coming. But Manasseh woke up, he repented, And it wasn't until his son was a very wicked son. And then Josiah came, who was a very godly king. And then very quick in succession after Josiah dies is Jehoiachin, Jehoiakim, and Zedekiah. One was only a 3-month reign, and the three brothers ended up, leading the kingdom and then being taken off to Babylon. And so Jeremiah started writing his book in the days of Josiah. And so right now he's talking in the days of Jehoiakim and Jehoiachin, just before Nebuchadnezzar took them off, because a lot of the time, that period that I'm talking about right now, is when Jerusalem is under siege, and there were only 2 other cities that had not fallen. Remember, they had walled cities. There are only 2 other cities. So Nebuchadnezzar was, getting ready to take them off, and so he's begging the people, please, God rewards you if you are obedient. Please turn back. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 26 and 27. Then the word of the Lord came after Jeremiah has had this prayer. No, Hypergirl, I'm sorry. I've called him and I have not heard back from him, and I don't know what's going on. He did try to call, and I had my phone on the charger and I was not near it, and so I didn't hear the phone ring. And I'm sorry, I've got a little different background today. The word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. I am the Lord, the God of all mankind. Listen to this, guys. Is anything too hard for me? Therefore, this is what the Lord says. Oh, no, that was all I was going to read. Anyhow, he's saying he's going to hand Jerusalem over to Nebuchadnezzar. Now drop down to verse 30. The people of Israel and Judah had done nothing but evil in my sight from their youth. Indeed, they have done nothing but provoke me. This city has so aroused my anger and wrath that I must remove it from my sight. The people have provoked me by all the evil they have done, and their leaders. They turn their backs to me and not their faces. Now, this is significant, guys. We're going to talk about this a little bit. They turn their backs to me and not their faces. Though I taught them again and again, they would not listen or respond to discipline. Folks, we are to seek the Lord with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. Instead, they turned their back. So I'm going to talk about seeking the Lord. And in Genesis 32:30, Jacob was wrestling. He thought he was wrestling with an angel, but it turns out he was wrestling with God himself, maybe Jesus, Jesus in an early fleshly human manifestation. And he was shocked that he had seen God face to face. There are very few people in the Bible who got to see God face to face. And yet his life was spared, which was not normal, because remember when Elijah wanted to see God, he said, no one can see my face and live. So here's Jacob recognizing that he got to see God face to face and he lived. Now Moses spoke to God face to face quite often, which is why he ended up with such a bright face that he had to cover it, because people were just shocked by it. Psalm 27. So I'm going to read some verses on. I was so impressed by this verse that I went to the concordance, and there are 2 ways to do a word search. I prefer going to Bible Gateway, but I just wanted to I didn't want a thorough study of every single verse on it. So I went to my concordance at the back of my Bible and I looked up the word seek. So I'm going to talk about several of these, and this is where I'm getting this. So Psalm 27:8 says, your face, Lord, will I seek. And don't forget 2 Chronicles 7:14, and I know I have that down here. It says, if my people who are called by my name, and remember in 2 Chronicles 7:14, verse 13 says, if I send plague and famine and disease, that if no, Thomas, he won't. Larry will not be here today. I've been trying to, we've played phone tag and I don't know what's happening. So 2 Chronicles 7:14 that Larry used to quote so often in 2016, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, but that's not enough, and seek my face. And what happens when you seek God's face? When you behold his holiness? James, I did not want that spoken today, please. I just really would appreciate your not saying something that I so when you see God's face, when you behold his holiness, anytime, John, when he was meeting Jesus Christ on Patmos, when an angel of the Lord appears, people fall on their faces and they humble themselves, and they change their ways. So it was Exodus 33:11 where it says that God spoke to Moses face to face. And then I'm going to read Exodus 33. Sorry, folks, you got to listen to wrestling because I didn't put markers in here today. Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. It really is important that we have help. It's awful when you have to be completely alone. And, that's one of the things that's stressing me out at this point. Because, I'm feeling bereft. I'm feeling bereft today. So, you have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. This is what God said to Moses. And Moses says, if I have found favor in your eyes, teach me your ways that I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Remember, this nation is your people. And the Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said, if your presence does not go with us, please do not send us up from here. How will anyone know you're pleased with me and your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all other people on the face of the earth? I mean, look, this is before they even, they're at Mount Sinai at this point, and, getting ready to move on. And it was after this that they went to the Jordan River, and he sent spies in. So this is between their crossing the Dead Sea, coming to get the 10 Commandments in chapter 20. We're in Exodus 33 here now, and before they go into Canaan. The Lord said, I will do the very thing that you have asked, because listen to this, because I am pleased with you, and I know you by name. And I wrote in my notes that Moses was driven to seek intimacy with God and to experientially know God. We're to seek his face. When you want to know see his face, not his back. If he turns his face away from you, you're in big trouble. A country is in big trouble when God turns away. Then Moses said, now show me your glory. So he wants to see even more. There's nothing wrong with asking God for more and more, And the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no one can see my face and live. And yet when the tabernacle was built, God did meet with him in the temple face to face. But, Moses had proven himself. Now, remember, Moses didn't get to go in and lead the people into Canaan after they had turned away and had to wander for 40 years, because God had told him to speak to the rock. First time he was told to strike a rock and bring water. The second time he was told to speak to the rock. But Moses was so angry with the people that he struck the rock in anger. instead of just speaking to it. And that disobedience kept him from going into the promised land. Then the Lord, but remember, God is the one who took care of Moses if he died. And we don't know if he actually, it does say in Deuteronomy that God buried him, but they couldn't find him where it was. And there are people who think that one of the two witnesses that come to Israel will be Moses and Elijah. The other two possibilities are Elijah and Enoch, because neither of them died. But Moses and Elijah were the two that came and talked with Jesus at the Transfiguration. And I think that's in chapter 4. Is it chapter 4 of Mark? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Then the Lord said, there's a place near me where you may stand on a rock. And this is very similar to what happened with Elijah in the cleft of the rock, right? When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock and cover your face with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back. My face you must not see. We may be here to see the two witnesses. We may, Hypergirl. They will be in Jerusalem only, and they will be preaching. I know, James, I know. But anyhow, I just don't need the danger, okay? Numbers 6:25 said, I love this. I have this in 2 places in my home. The Lord bless you and keep you. Folks, look up this blessing. This is the Aaronic blessing, the blessing that Aaron spoke over the people. Look it up on YouTube. There are several renditions of this set to music, set to Israeli music. And I don't like to tell people the music I love listening to, because when people tell me what they get ministered to, it doesn't minister to me. But getting this blessing on you and your family is really important. This is a blessing that my dad most often used this blessing, or the one at the end of, I think it's Ephesians 3. And there's one in Jude, the last couple verses of Jude. Those are the 3 blessings that he would rotate at the end of his church services. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you, which is granting you his favor. His face looking on you, he is looking on you with favor. And may the Lord be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you, not his back, and give you peace. And then in Deuteronomy 31, verses 16 to 18, this is a prediction. God predicted that the people would forsake me and break the covenant I made with them. On that day that they break the covenant, I will become angry with them and forsake them. I will hide my face from them, and they will be destroyed. Many disasters and difficulties will come upon them. And on that day they will ask, have not these disasters come upon us because our God is not with us? And I will certainly hide my face on that day because of their wickedness in turning to other gods. Now we're going to see a little further on, a few chapters later, when there are Israelites or Jews that have gone down into Egypt against God's will, and they are worshiping the Queen of Heaven. I don't know about you, but I hear about people praying to the Queen of Heaven. And God is saying in Jeremiah that the Queen of Heaven was a false god. So if you have any knowledge of current worship of the Queen of Heaven, you need to read. And we'll get to that. I don't remember. Let's see. I'm looking. Sorry. I think it's Jeremiah chapter 44. I wasn't planning on teaching on that, but I kind of threw it at you today. And I'm concerned about whether God has hidden his face from us. And is that why disaster after disaster is piling up on us right now? I don't know. I'm just asking. It's a question I'm puzzling over myself. And First Chronicles 16. Let me see if I can get the turn there real quickly. Just a sec. First Chronicles 16. And I'm going to read verses 8 to 12. So David is asking Asaph. Asaph was the lead singer for the temple, or for the tabernacle. They didn't have the temple yet, but for their worship. So David gave him this psalm of thanks to the Lord, and David, wrote a lot of the psalms and was a songwriter too. Give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known among the nations what he has done. Listen to that, make known among the nations what he has done. Do you know there is not a single nation on earth more than the United States that has sent missionaries around the world? There was a time, in the 1800s where England was sending quite a few, but they were kind of resistant to letting missionaries go. They sent a few, but then America picked up the mantle, and we have sent missionaries everywhere. But there are parts of the world that have not been evangelized. And do you realize what God did? He brought them to us. There are very few missionaries among the Muslims because of the danger. So he has brought a lot of Africans here. He has brought a lot of people from the Caribbean here. He has brought a lot of Asians here. So if you have people from other parts of the world living around you, God has brought them into your life that you might share the gospel with them. Tell them about Jesus. So make known among the nations what he has done. Sing to him. Sing praises to him. Tell of all his wonderful acts. That's why it's really important that we be reminded of the good things God has done, which is why I wanted to pay some tribute to my dad today. Because people have loved my dad. I think I've told you this story before. He was after he'd come back, our family had come back from Jamaica, he was taking the youth group out to the Navajo reservation to do ministry. And they may have even gone all the way to California. I'm not sure. Anyhow, they were going through Nebraska. He was driving his own car, and his car broke down and was kaput dead. Not going to repair it, just time to replace it. It's an old car. And he went to a car dealership. God had right there at that exit, his car died near an exit. He was able to get off and the car staggered into the parking lot. And he went in, and my dad walked out the door with a car. It was a used car, but he walked out the door on a handshake and said, I have got to get these kids to their mission trip. I will pay you and make arrangements for payment on my way back. And the man had never done that before, and he did it. That's a tribute to the kind of man that everybody could recognize my dad was. I mean, I've never heard of it happening for anybody else, but those kinds of stories happen to Dad a lot. So glory in God's holy name. Let the hearts of those who seek the Lord rejoice. And remember, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. That's Philippians 4:4. And then also, of course, you're rejoicing. So that's in everything, give thanks. Look to the Lord and his strength. Seek his face always. Remember the wonders he has done, his miracles, and the judgments he pronounced. I'm going to stop there, and because I was going to read the whole of Psalm 4. So we'll do that tomorrow. Anyhow, we are going to spend several days this week talking about, until Larry comes, talking about seeking God's face and how important that is. Because Larry had preached, I say preached, he doesn't consider himself a preacher, but he quoted 2 Chronicles 7:14 many times during October 2016, right up to the election. And it's the third condition for God's healing the land is to seek his face. So we're going to talk about that some more. So we'll start with Psalm 4 tomorrow. I hope I can get hold of Larry. I'm going to leave him alone at this point, and if he calls me, fine. If he doesn't, I don't know what'll happen. Anyhow, I had a rough night last night, and I'm pretty tired today, and God is doing something. I think it's amazing to think that my dad gets to go to glory and miss all of what we will have to face. And, it'll be interesting to see how long Mom lasts and in what conditions she survives after he's gone. I did have a talk with my sister about, she's aware that the vaccine very probably is the mark without which no one can buy or sell. Do you know, guys, the mask that we have to wear? We're supposed to wear. I haven't worn it yet, except I haven't. I'll take it. I'll throw it, wave it in the air at them, and I won't put it on. At least I haven't yet. And you can't buy or sell. Then nobody's allowed to sell, and people are not allowed to buy now unless you wear the mask. Well, do you realize mask? If you change that S to an R, R is the letter before S, QRS, mark, mask. There's significance there that we need to pay attention to. So, anyhow, that's it for today. Hopefully I'll hear from Larry and we'll know what's going on. So, I just would appreciate prayers for Larry and what he's going through. And I know something has happened that's making things very rough, and I don't know. I have no idea. Okay, I don't know, but I am concerned for him, and I'd appreciate prayer for my should we go around with green clay on our faces? The mask, MASQUE. That's funny. Somebody else has said we need to go out and buy Lone Ranger masks. The little black one on the eyes. I did want to say something more about the masks. So, I watch Dave Dobbenmeyer as often as I can in the morning. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. I will let him know. So Dave Dobbenmeyer had a special weekend of helping people get training in self-defense and weapons and communication devices and so on. And they had a big bonfire Saturday night. Well, one of the people who came to their weekend had been a witch who came to Christ 3 years ago. She called herself a white witch. So she was telling a little bit about the occult and witchcraft and Wiccan. And she had brought she had tried to destroy and burn in the fire a lot of her paraphernalia, books and chants and stuff. And God had told her to wait and not destroy all of it. So she had come with a feather crown, tarot cards, a drum for drumming, a shaker, the kinds of things that they did in rituals. Anyhow, and then she threw all this stuff in the bonfire. It was interesting. Somebody asked her about the masks, and she said, absolutely. Putting on a mask that covers, it's all about silencing your voice and giving them absolute control over you. That we are in a satanic ritual worldwide because Satan is trying to bring in his end time kingdom. He's had it with God. He's had it with waiting. He wants to be God. He wants the worship. And so he is doing this ritual on the world for his control. And I'll leave it at that. We may get into that more later in the week, but I'll just leave it at that and let you ponder over that one. So God bless you guys. As I had told my daughter after Columbine, when she wondered what she would do if she were ever faced with a situation where she might die if she admitted that she loved God, I told her then, and I will tell you today, that is not something you can wait until you are faced with the circumstance to know what you are going to do. Because remember, I have told you over and over again, fear releases chemicals. There's adrenaline, there's norepinephrine, there's, I can't remember the third one. And those chemicals bathe your whole brain with these chemicals, and it will shut down the thinking part of your brain. And so they know that. And so they are keeping us in fear so we will not be able to think about our trust in God. And last night I was just, very repeating over and over again scripture, trying to take my thoughts captive to the mind of Christ. I can't say that I succeeded very well, but I'll tell you, thank you guys for letting me be here, sharing God's word with you, with what we are having to face and what we know is coming, that we will remain strong and be committed. And we cannot, good, Thomas, we cannot wallow in fear. Take your thoughts captive and do not beat yourself up if you cannot do it well. We have got to come against Satan and what he is trying to do against us. We are to bind it and we are to rebuke it. And we are to be patient with ourselves as we seek to get to the place where we need to be. Because the number of demons that are coming on the earth at this point, coming up from the abyss, coming from the second heaven, we ain't seen nothing yet, folks. And you better make sure you are doing everything you can to know what God says about not being afraid. Okay, remember in Luke 21, it says that people are going to faint from fear because of what's coming on the earth. So, thank you, Pam. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, because, say things out loud. I know we can think thoughts while we're speaking. You can't have two separate thoughts at one time. So force yourself to think the positive things of God's word. Force yourself to focus on the Lord, because if we are going into fear, if we are going into negative, we are giving the demonic power. Don't give him power over your life. Don't give him power over your family. Rebuke it and declare again and again that your trust is in the Lord until your attitude changes, okay? I'm having to do that too. The stress I have felt all day today has just been horrendous. So thank you for being with me here today, because it really has helped me to calm down and be at peace. So I thank you all very, very much for sharing this 40 minutes with me. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow. See ya. Bye. Hopefully back with Larry, but who knows?